For those who know what's right. For those wedded to the machines in their bedrooms, their studios, their best friend's garage or basement. For those who negotiate with the system every day to make time for the music that matters. For those who get in debt to fund the fight against the mundane. For those who stay true to their cause even in the face of income and fame through compromise. For those who feel the power of every beat. For those who keep their minds open. For those who encourage and support those pursuing their personal dream. For those who sacrifice relationships to make sure the music is heard. For those for which the music is a lifetime, not a pastime. This is Bass Agenda.
This is Freddy Fresh, you're checking out Bass Agenda.
How you doing? Welcome to Bass Agenda. This month I'm really pleased to say we're well and truly in legend mode, welcoming the wonderful Freddy Fresh to the show, somebody who is surely one of the most productive guys in electronic music. He's been putting out really good stuff for well over 35 years, covering almost every genre you can think of, starting back in the day with hip hop, moving through techno, through house, ambient, drum and bass, big beat, break beat. You name it, he's done it, and to a very, very high standard. So we're going to explore as much of that as we can. Plus we've got a really cool interview with him that myself and Phil, aka Bass Junkie, did with him 2 or 3 weeks ago. Some really cool stories, some things to learn. Plus you might want to make a few notes as we go, because there's an awful lot of music talked about here, which is well worth checking out and that we couldn't fit into the show. Enjoy the ride, turn it up.
Minnesota has, I mean, we have a pretty large black population because we have a lot of people that, you know, migrated north in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And I was actually raised by a black man. My stepfather's black. He's
Right.
from Chicago. He's from Chicago. So he basically raised me from age 10 up, age 10. And he wasn't, I mean, he had some soul and funk, but he was more a blues guy. He was more of a blues guy. And I didn't really pay much attention to you know, what he was playing but I'm you know, self-analyzing this, I'm thinking maybe that might have had something to stir me into a different direction, perhaps, because Minnesota was pretty pop, pretty, you know, white bread, poppy, you know, from Bob Dylan, a rock and pop, basically. We didn't have too many. We did have a community radio station. We had some community programs and college programs that would get into different styles of music, but it was more industrial, rock, industrial, and punk type of stuff. But I got the bite for this music probably in about 1980 when Sugar Hill Gang came out. You know, the hip, the hop, the hip. That was kind of almost mainstreamish a little bit, and it was, you know, people were into, and it was intriguing to me because of the rhymes and just the fact that, you know, I could remember some of the rhymes and I could say them back, but it did get me more curious. And then there was an electro program that came out in, I think, 1982, and I think they might have dropped a couple songs, but I was friends with a lot of black kids, and a lot of my black friends would bring in records from other cities, like Planet Rock. So it's like my best friend was playing Planet Rock in his backyard at a barbecue in 1982, and he had an 808 drum machine in his basement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I didn't really know or think about. I was like, the reason I know it is because I ended up borrowing it when I started producing music. And so he knew Prince, and a lot of my black friends knew like Hubert Eaves from the keyboard player for D-Train.
Right.
St. Paul. So
Right.
I was at a high-rise apartment complex on, you know, Highway 94, which is just 2 miles down the road from me, and hanging out with my friend Stevie. He was like my best friend, and there's this guy playing keyboards, and he's like, oh yeah, he's the keyboard player on D-Train. They just did a hit record in New York. I didn't care again. This was 1980. I cared, but not enough to be like, oh my God. Like today I'd be like, shit, give me your autograph. I was like, I remembered it. You know what I mean? But I was more at that stage, 80, 81, into just listening to the music and discovering it. Not getting into the intricacies of the music and who's producing this and that. That didn't happen until 83 when I went to New York. Right. I was dating a girl from the South Bronx. She was Puerto Rican, which ended up being my wife. And I went to the Bronx in 1983, or 1984. I'm sorry, my very first trip. And that was it. It was like that. Everything just came boom, bang, boom, bang. The whole world changed for me at that point. Yeah. It was, oh my God. And we went to the airport in Manhattan, and then we couldn't get a cab to the Bronx. They wouldn't take us to the Bronx. No one wanted to take us to the Bronx. And I was like, what's going on with that? And she's like, people don't want to go to the Bronx. You know, she didn't say because it's crazy and dangerous. I mean, I was kind of ignorant, but my innocence was a charming factor to a lot of the people in the Bronx. You know, and I looked different. I was like one of the few white guys around there, running around the street. There was some older Jewish families and stuff in some of the parts, but some of the areas that she were from, like Mapes, 182nd, over by the zoo, were just hot neighborhoods. Just hot, crazy shit. But for me, it was so exciting. The excitement trumped the fear factor to the point where I just was not afraid. I was just, holy shit, there's a record store. Look at these hot women everywhere, and they're looking at me. I'm not getting this attention in Minnesota. You know, I look like everybody else. I look like everybody else in Minnesota.
So it's like a sensory overload, man.
And like right now, my wife is Colombian. I mean, we've been 21 years together. So I mean, and I ended up with that woman for a long time. But the point of the matter was, once I go back to Minnesota, the comparison was so drastic. The contrast was so drastic. You know, and so I would get on the phone and I would call the record. I was smart enough to know, after probably my second trip to New York, that, okay, I come back and this music's not happening. People are not playing, you know, driving around with their hatchbacks open with huge systems pounding the bass. You might hear some songs once in a while. So I tried to like gravitate towards some of the black community record stores, and I found out some of them had maybe a couple more of the very common releases of records that were playing. But like some of the stuff I was hearing in New York, like on my because I started bringing my mix. I had a little portable red cassette player that I brought with me because I didn't have a lot of money, and I brought that back to New York, and I would start recording deep, BLS, WRK. I saw Latin Rascal, Shep Pettibone, everybody.
Yeah.
I'd come back and then I would try to hunt down. I would find out what the songs were. I'd call on the phone, the stores, and I'd play them on the earphone of this, and be, oh yeah, Freddie, that's this, that's that, and they got to know me because I called constantly. I mean, I can't obsessed. Look the word up. There's a picture of me in the dictionary right next to it. That's what I want.
So a total vinyl junkie.
And
then.
you guys are. I'm sure you guys are.
Yeah, just constantly hungry for
we
it.
We can relate totally to that. I was you
Yes.
guys. And you guys, the only difference is the geographical areas where we were all located. New York was a hotbed of activity. It was just an amazing time that I didn't realize how amazing it was until later in retrospect.
when you were going to New York, what were the places you were buying most of your vinyl from? And would lead on to the other thing. How did you get to work at B-Boy Records? Because that's pretty impressive. And then remixing.
Well, I'll clarify that now. I didn't work in the offices at B-Boy Records.
Okay.
Grassroots Def Jam rep. I was a Def Jam rep and a B-Boy rep. So I'd hang out. I would go into the offices and hang out. I was there. I mean, I was hanging out in the offices and stuff. Everybody knew. But it was. But to be fair, I was only at B-Boy Records a handful of times. I wasn't like I was there every weekend or something. Because you have to remember, I would go to New York in the summer times, and I would spend a month or two there. And then I would come back, and every time I would fight with my ex, which was like almost every day, I would get in my Datsun and I would drive. I've got some hilarious stories, dude. I had a really beat to shit 1972 Datsun, and I was having a fight with my dad at the trophy shop, and my ex didn't want it. It was drama. I was raising her kid. The point is, I was 21, 22, 23. I was going through drama. I fought with my dad at the pro shop. It was 3 p.m. I said, fuck it, I don't want to go home to my girlfriend and her kid. I'm just going to drive. I'm going to New York. And I got in my Datsun and I just drove to fucking New York. I had lunch break. It's a 17-hour drive.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a long way, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of it was anger and rage, and I'm going to New York, you know. And when I started in the car and I got to the Ohio, welcome to the turnpike system. I was like, oh shit, the toll system. Fuck hell. And I was looking through my pockets. I had like a $5 bill, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not turning around. What am I going to do? And I was trying to look at maps for side streets to get through the tolls. And so what I did was I looked in I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Sears department stores.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I had it back in the 80s. Sears was famous and known for giving people a chance to get credit. Okay. And so I had an introductory credit card $50 limit letter in my glove compartment. Now, $50 in 1984 was like $200 now.
Yeah.
And because they would do it for young people. And so I said, oh, I got to find a Sears. So I drove off the turnpike, went and found a Sears store, waited in line, got up there, and I said, can I activate a card? Is this, can you honor this card? Well, absolutely. If we sent it to you, we'll definitely honor it.
Oh, wow.
So they gave me like $50 in cash out of that card immediately. Bam, good, right there. Because once I got to the Bronx, I stayed with my ex's brother. He had a place there.
Right.
He was there, and so when I got there, he's like, Freddie, if you're coming, this is like my probably third or fourth time of doing this shit. He says, if you're coming here again, you need to get a job. You got 2 weeks. You get a job, or you're going back to Minnesota. And so I took I had my Datsun. So I went to Alexander's. That's a big chain. They have one in the 149th and 3rd in the south Bronx, like the really harsh area. The point is, I went and I tried to get a job, and I went to Crazy Eddie's record store.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're on Fordham Road, and that was a big spot for buying records. And I went in the basement, and I applied there, and they were like, we're not really hiring right now. And I ended up working at a place called Xanadu Records. But to be fair, I was there just off and on because I ended up driving the staff around, basically, because I had a car, and a lot of the young kids didn't have cars. And so they would hang out with me, and I'd drive them places. And then when it came time to get paid, he said, I can give you, $200 or $300 with the records. What do you think I took? And so that was it. The fire had been lit. So I started working at record stores. I worked at a St. Paul record store. Okay, when I worked at B-Boy Records, what happened was it's an interesting story. I walked my ex-brother-in-law, he was a big Puerto Rican guy. We drove through that area, and he was walking me there, and I remember this so well because he was trying to get me to do cocaine. And everybody did cocaine out there. It was just everybody did it, and I didn't do it. I was a total nerd. And so he was like, you got to do this. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing that shit, man. He's like, you just do it. And he put it up to my nose, and I blew it all over the place, and he never asked me to do it again. He was so
wasted that stuff.
But that happened like right outside the door at B-Boy Records.
Right.
And then to B-Boy Records, it was just a red door. I actually have a picture of me in front of it. I look horrible. I've got this big belly, and it's just a bad picture of me. But and I had a Jerry curl perm. I looked like so bad.
Oh, I had one of those. Don't worry.
I was standing right in front of the door, and it said B-Boys on the door in blue ink. It was really not. It was not a cool sign. It was like someone just wrote B-Boys on this door.
Wow.
And Will Camaro was in there, and I went in there and basically talked my way into working with him, and they really liked me a lot. And I ended up doing the plaque for the Man and His Music album. I did a remix for Man and His Music, and I did the plaque for Criminal Minded.
Right. Okay.
They also
cool.
did a plaque. They also used my plaque on the Beat Girls album.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I had that album. I remember The Man and His Music, where it was a sad time, obviously, Scott LaRock getting shot. I mean, awful. I remember it coming over on the radio. I remember listening to the radio and it being announced, and it was like shocking. And then I remember buying the album. It had a picture of him, a yellow cover, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, was there 3 records in there, maybe 4?
Two records and an insert. My picture's on there. I'm in there sitting in a chair.
Yeah, I don't remember the remix. So honestly, I need to.
No one remembers the remix. The only remixes that were good on that album, there was a couple really good ones. Mine was not a good remix. I didn't know he was going to use it. He didn't tell me that. Man, I was so broke back then. I was hustling. I delivered pizza at night, and I worked at the pro shop in the day. My dad paid me shit, which in retrospect was a good thing because he forced me to look outside the box. So I'd probably still be working at the pro shop.
Yeah.
And he I asked on the phone to Bill Camara when he said, "Freddie, we're going to put this out." I was like, "Do I actually get money from this?" He goes, "Yeah, you're going to get at least $10,000." That's what he told me. I mean, come on, where did he get that number? I mean, $10,000? That's insane. Imagine if they paid every guy in that. I mean, I'm sure Scott and Chris didn't get $10,000 for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, Scott was dead, of course. But
you could buy a lot in Sears with that kind of money.
Yeah, no shit. It was just, but it was so exciting, you know. I mean, I used to a Digitech guitar blue foot sampler that sampled for 2 seconds, and I sampled stuff on that, and then and I had a guy over here locally alter the pedal because it would only come out in one channel. So if you had headphones on, you'd only hear the sample in your left ear.
Yeah.
And so he put a summing box so that the samples would come through. And when I sampled music, it sounded really crappy. But when I sampled a cappella, it sounded okay.
And so you could get away with it.
Yeah, and I ended up using that on the remix. I did remix number 7. They're not labeled, so nobody knows who they're what. I think I went on Discogs and fixed it.
Boogie Down Production. We'll always get paid. We'll always get paid. We'll always get paid. We'll take the wackest song. And make it better. Make it better. Get better. Get better. Get better. Get better. So you can stop guessing if this is a gift or a written down memo. See, I am a professional. This is not a demo. In fact, call it a lecture, a visual picture, sort of a poetic in rhythm like mixture. Listen, I'm not dissing, but there's something that you're missing. Maybe you should teach reality. Stop wishing for beats with plenty bass and lyrics set in haste. If its meaning doesn't manifest, put it to rest. I am a poet. You try to show it, get blowing. It takes concentration for fresh communication, observation. That is to see without speaking. Take off your coat, take notes. I am teaching a class or rather school, cause you need schooling. I am not a king or queen, I'm not ruling. This is an introduction to yourself. come from. South Bronx. South Bronx. Yo, what's up, Blast Master KRS-One? This jam is kicking. Word. Yo, what up, D Nice? Yo, what's up, Scott LaRock? Yo, man, we chillin' this funky fresh jam. I want to tell you a little something about us. We're the Boogie Down Production crew. And due to the fact that no one outside there knew what time it was, we have to tell you a little story about where we come from. South Bronx, the South Bronx. 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 Many people tell me this style is terrific. It is kinda different, but let's get specific. KRS-One specializes in music. I'll only use this type of style when I choose it. Party people in the place to be. KRS-One attacked. You got dropped off MCA cause the rhymes you wrote was whack. So you think that hip-hop had its start out in Queensbridge? If you pop that junk up in the Bronx, you might not live, cause you're in South Bronx, the South Bronx, South Bronx, the South Bronx, South Bronx, the South Bronx, South Bronx, the South Bronx. I came with Scott LaRock to express one thing. I am a teacher and others are kings. If that's the title they earn, well, it's well deserved. But without a crown, so I still burn. You settle for a pebble, not a stone like a rebel. KRS-One is the holder of a boulder. Money holder. You want a fresh style? Let me show you.
We'll miss you, Scott. We'll miss you, Scott. We'll miss you, Scott. We'll miss you, Scott. We'll miss you, Scott.
Did making music for you was it just like a natural progression from DJing as it is for a lot of people, or was there a defining moment where you thought, yeah, I don't just want to play people's music, I want to make my own shit?
The 1775 sampling mixer by Newmark came out with the round button where you could sample for 3 seconds, and so great mixer. But what happened for me was after I had, you guys have actually jogged my memory in something I never remembered. This just came to me. When I was talking to B-Boy Records, he said, we need remixers to remix this album. And I was not a remixer. I was just a DJ. And I was like, okay, but all right, I'll try to find someone in Minnesota. And then it occurred to me, I don't know, who the fuck am I going to find to remix this song? And I didn't want to let them down, because they've been giving me boxes of records to bring to Minnesota to just try to sell to stores and get interest for them. I was like their Midwest rep. And I totally milked that, man. I went and got business cards made up from the clubs I was at, and I told everybody, I'm going to break your shit in the Midwest. Def Jam bought it, Tommy Boy bought it, Zakaya bought it, and I got free records because I was a junkie like you guys probably.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And I couldn't, and I was raising a kid that wasn't my stepson, I was raising him, and then I had a baby. I couldn't afford to buy shit. And I said, you know what? Let me try to do this remix.
Okay.
If I can. All I had was one turntable at the time. I've never had a pair of 12. In all my career of DJing, I've never had a matching pair of 1200s in my basement or in my studio for more than 3 months, because I'm always in clubs and they always have 1200. But I had to buy this foot sample pedal because I knew samplers were the thing. I have to buy a sampler, and I can't really afford one. Long story short, I did the remix, and I didn't expect them to take it. And when he said, we're putting this out, I felt, oh shit, it must be good enough for them. Let me try to experiment. And then when I bought the 1775 mixer, that was it. I was like, shit, now I can fly, because that was a better quality sound. Remember, it was a pretty decent quality sound for the time. And then I made a record. And then I bought I remember now. Then I bought my very first synthesizer, was a DSS-1 Korg sampler, huge machine. And I made payments on layaway for like 2 months before I could pick it up. And when I bought that, I had moved out, probably 7th time of moving out of the house or the apartment, because of my ex was fighting with her all the time. And I had all my gear at the top of my dad's pro shop. So I was living in the trophy part of where we had all the trophy supplies upstairs. And I had my DSS-1 sampler up there. And I made a mix for he was an English guy who ran Raveline Records in New Jersey. and that was my first 12-inch single. It was, I think it was rated like Jeff. His name was Jeffrey, and I got $500 for doing that. Now you remember, I was getting $200 a week at the pro shop.
So $500, that's pretty good actually, going back then.
Oh,
so
it was great money.
What year was that?
This is 1992.
It's good going now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
92. And I'm one thing I'm very proud of myself, that I paid all my artists on my record labels $500 every time they do a release.
Yeah, because nowadays, I mean, we did an interview with Man Parrish for Space Lab quite recently, and the way he was treated is just diabolical. I mean, you have to have a listen to that one, Freddie, but I mean, it's shocking.
I think I started listening.
Yeah, it's so bad how he was treated. I mean, considering especially how many millions of records he sold.
Oh, talk about the blues artist, dude. The blues artist make Man Parrish look like he was the most wealthy artist in the world.
That's awful, isn't it? It's just
so
bad.
Jazz and blues artists in the 50s and 40s were just so bad.
That's terrible. Yeah, definitely.
It's like that. So his film is like that too.
Freddie, I mean, like, where were you DJing back then?
Oh man. Okay, I'd go to any bars that would take me, basically. My first paid gig was for $75 a night in 1983. That was before I went to the Bronx, a year before I went to the Bronx.
Okay.
And I went to First Avenue. There's a club here called First Avenue that Prince appeared in the Purple Rain movie in.
Right.
And that, there was a DJ on stage about 1981, and he was amazing. And when I saw him on stage, I said, I want to do that. I want to do that. And that's when I started buying turntables, and I had a Radio Shack mixer. That was that like the Tandy stores for you guys. Tandy is Radio Shack for us.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I knew that because I lived in London for so many years. And that's when I thought, I want to start doing mixes and buying records. And I bought. That's when I just started getting 12-inch singles. But for me, the problem was I never had enough money for my habit. I just didn't have. I couldn't afford to buy records, and so I had to figure out a clever way. So I was an engraver at the trophy shop. I've told this story to people like a Strut magazine and all these different magazines, or Strut's compilation. And I would engrave nameplates all day long for trophies on a machine, and then sometimes on a hand engraver. And so when these people, I would call the record labels in New York City, and I would say, you guys want to put me on the promo list? And now I remember I told you a couple of them bought it, but a lot of them didn't buy it. Profile didn't buy it. And so I said, fuck, how am I going to get these records? And so I asked, well, can you at least give me a list that tells me what records are coming out? Because I would find that when I would call downtown or Rock and Soul or some of the mail order stores, they'd say, no, Freddie, we only had a few of those. They're gone.
I know what that's like. Yeah, we look like we got a similar background there, with how it all happened. I mean, hip-hop, when it exploded over in the UK, just blew my mind. Just the B-boys, the music, everything going, the graffiti.
And I can't even, I was actually there, some of it. That's what blows my mind. It is, man. Yeah. And it's like, but when I kick myself for a lot of things that I didn't do, like I kicked myself for not going to the Devil's Nest, which is the Nido de Diablo. That was a Latino club right in the Bronx, and I never went.
Right.
I did go
to that one.
I went to a lot of, it was a huge freestyle club too. I went, and there was a lot of hip hop guys went. I never went to the skating place that was on rooftop skating rink. I never went there. I did go to Danceteria. Yeah. And I did go to all the record stores, and I hung out religiously with Lenny Roberts of Ultimate Breaks and Beats, and never took a picture of him.
No.
And I just kicked myself so hard for that, because he's such an iconic.
Yeah. What was his record store?
He had an office at DJ Specialty, which was owned by Robert Gregory. That was in Castle Hill Avenue, and I used to hang there all the time with those guys. And Breakbeat Lou, and we'd all hang out there, and we'd sit and talk stories about, whatever it was. And Lenny had a little office upstairs, just a little office. But then he got an office on Pugsley Avenue, and he'd have these big spools hanging out from the wall, and he'd have 45s on them. So if you wanted to get 145, you'd have to take hundreds of 45s off and go through all of them to get the one.
Clothes rack kind of thing.
Yeah. It was the dumbest freaking way to store records. But I don't think he cared, because he wasn't trying to access them. He was just trying to get them out of the way. You know what I mean?
So during the interview with Freddie, we asked him if he could pick out a few tracks from back in the day. So we're going to blast through 2 or 3 of those now. And coming up soon after that, we'll be playing some old school stuff from his own labels. Just the tip of the iceberg, but give you a real good flavour. And then we'll be switching between genres as the show goes on.
is the Egyptian Lover, and you're checking into the Bass Agenda Radio Show.
I didn't even actually realise quite how many labels you have had going over the years, because, you know, I know Howlin' and B-Boy Beats and Pieces, Analog Records, obviously, and Electric Music Foundation, but I didn't know about Socket or Butterbeat. Can you tell us about those? I mean,
I will tell you an interesting thing about Butterbeat. Butterbeat was my hip hop label I ran with my close friend Josh Virgin, a beat archaeologist, who actually did an album on IQ Records, which is a genius album. It's called Dust, Static, and Plastic.
Right.
And I'm telling you, this album is fucking badass, dude. It's badass. It's got the muscle, it's got the balls, it's got the rhymes. It's just the underground cult album, and the guys who know, they have it. But a lot of people don't know about it. He was a very, very wonderful, loving guy, but he was extremely dysfunctional drug addict.
Right.
And he went down the meth road and hardcore. I mean, hardcore. And he would only date black girls. And he lived in the hood, rough areas. And he met me I was the DJ at the roller rink I was a DJ at what was it? Roller Gardens, it was called.
Right.
And he was the only white kid in the whole audience. And he came up to me. He had razors cut into the side of his head. And I was playing LL Cool J test pressing I had gotten from Def Jam or some shit. And he's like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "From Def Jam Records." And he's like, "You go to," and I said, "Where? You go to New York?" I said, "Yeah." And so they tested me to see if I really went to the Bronx. Like I said, I would. I didn't know it was a big deal to go to the Bronx.
Right.
I was like going to another city or something. And so one of these dudes came up to me, started asking me questions about streets, and I just answered him. And he's like, "Yeah, he was there." I mean, you get those records in Manhattan before you could get them in the Bronx. To be honest with you, Manhattan had more records than the Bronx did.
Oh, okay, right.
I mean, the Bronx had great records. Don't get me wrong. And the occasion, like Moody's Records, was in the Bronx, and that was, that was Rommel Z and a bunch of different, not Rommel Z. I can't remember. But it's in my book. But the point of the conversation is there were stores in the Bronx that had great records. They also had a ton of Latino records, salsa, merengue, stuff like that. Yeah. Because there was a huge Latino community in the Bronx. I mean, there still is. There's Mexicans and Dominicans, Cubans.
Yes.
And they would be mixed. You'd find rap, but you'd find it mixed. And plus, rap was still kind of a faddish thing a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Z-C's came out, and I bought it. Instead of going to Manhattan, I could get it right in the Bronx because it was a hot record. If it was on the radio, you could buy it in the Bronx.
Did you say Z3MCs then?
Yeah. Triple threat. No,
yeah.
I ran right down the street. I went to a store. When there was a white guy, Jewish guy. It was just an older Jewish guy who ran an electronics shop. They would have electronics / record stores.
Right.
So you could buy radios and speakers, and then they'd have records too. So that's how the shops used to be there. I tried to work at those record stores. I tried to get jobs at all of them.
Yeah. So that was another great label. That was out of New Jersey, wasn't it?
Yeah, Beauty and the Beat.
Yeah, that was an incredible label. Some of the stuff on that, the DJ Cheese word of mouth stuff, and
everybody loves
Duke Booty. Yeah, I mean, incredible music, incredible drum program. He's so heavy as well. I mean, the way he just brought those drums to the front in his mixes were just it was next level, wasn't it? I mean, I'm rest in peace, Duke Booty. I'd love to have spoken to him.
The New York scene was so cool. When I was researching my book, I was talking to Delmar Donnell. He ran the Philosophy Rap and Spree and all these famous rappers. Delmar Donnell told me that when he sold his releases on his Harlem labels, Sugar Hill Records, what's the guy who ran Sugar Hill Records with
Sylvia
Robinson, her husband, was a notorious gangster.
Right.
And he was totally terrifying all the independent record labels when they would put out their music. And if they didn't listen, he owned the radio to a degree. Not like he wanted to own it, but he had enough money and enough power that he could keep the songs off the radio. So he was successful with Philosophy Rap and Spree by Super 3 to keep it off the radio. And he also threatened Delmar Donnell, "Don't be fucking trying to get that shit on the radio, because you're going to be dealing with me." And he was a gangster. And so he told me that he had a refrigerator in his behind his apartment, and he left copies for of his releases for not Marley Marl, Mr. Magic to come and grab them. Mr. Magic was going to swing by his apartment and grab the records out of his refrigerator. He never did. He realized, he asked him, "Why didn't you come and take the records? I'll bring them to you." And he's like, "Oh yeah, no." And he found out that Joe, I think is the guy, Robinson.
Right. Okay. Sylvia's husband
was threatening people not to play the records, and so that happened. I think with Disco Wax, Soul Wax. The early Harlem labels that were around the time of 80 Sugar Hill Gang time.
Right. So they didn't want the competition.
Yeah, he was strong arming the people in the local radio community, or not so much the radio community, but the actual independent, like record store owners, distributors. There was a networking chain. You know, you'd have the distributor who would get it to the shops, and he was putting cogs, and then, or if his first thing wasn't to threaten. His first thing was to pay him off. You know, here's $1,000, or here's $200. I don't want you to take the shipment. Stuff like he just did little. You know, don't quote me on how he did it.
So is that because that he had an early sign there that things were going to explode and he wanted the monopoly on it, or?
Well, I don't know why. I'm sure it's because he was. I mean, there's just people that get greedy. You know, it's like it's not enough for me to be successful. I have to. That's very common in England too. People, you know, it's not good enough that you're doing well and I'm doing well. I need to do better by holding you back.
So Howlin' Records, I've got a couple of bits on. Well, I've got. Is it Antron Earthquake on that label?
That's the rarest Howlin' record.
That's okay. I have that one.
There's only like a couple. I think there's only 100 of those actually.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. How many units were you?
I don't even know if I have one of those, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's
really
rare. That's super rare. It's sad that I couldn't put a 7-minute version on there.
Well, there was a 12 as well that came out later, wasn't there? Somebody put it out on
that was the English guy,
vinyl.
Saxon Scoundrels. That's Andy Halstead. He is.
Oh yes.
Gifted producer.
Yes, definitely. So I have that. And that's one of my favourites, actually.
And him and Russ. Russ was MP3 genius.
Yes, that's
right.
Those
guys are freaking nasty ass producers, man. Badass producers. I feel bad that you couldn't make those guys, give those guys more fame. I mean,
well, I have those that the 12-inch and the 7-inch, isn't it? There's the red 12-inch. That's the on B-Boy.
And the DJ Wild Thing from Holland did an absolutely blinding remix too on a mini mix.
Yes, because these guys, because I met all these guys through Electro Empire years ago. So they were all on Electro Empire, MP3 Genius, Andy House.
Did you hear what they did? Did you hear what they did on the Freddy Fresh Records remix master mix?
Not sure.
Tokyo, Japan did a 3 CD poster with a poster of all the records used in the Freddy Fresh Presents the Rap Records book.
Right. Okay. Oh,
we did a 3-part master mix series for the book.
Okay.
And they did some work in there that is just holy shit. I can't even believe how good it is.
Okay, well, I'll have to check that out. Because I was going to say, did you put the album out as well by Ictus? Was it Lucky Bastard or something? Was that you?
No, that wasn't me. I just put out a bunch of singles on 7 inches. And
because I have those. There's some good ones.
You guys should interview him. You guys should interview him one day. He's great. He's really knowledgeable. He's a brilliant producer and a great DJ.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, I used to be in contact with him quite a bit. I met him years ago. He was at the Nucleus gig, the first Nucleus gig in the UK, that AD 2005. Loads of Electro Empire heads were all there for that.
Yeah, I think he's underlooked. Like you say, some of us are underlooked. I think he's an underlooked producer.
Well, this is the thing, man. This is what we're trying to do is just fill in some other gap, because there's a lot. I mean, particularly with Space Lab and the book that Billy's writing, we're trying to understand why hip hop and why electro hip hop in particular is left out of so many retellings of the story of music.
Yeah,
it's almost like it's just skipped over for some reason. I don't know if you see that yourself, man.
Well, okay. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic there, because we're talking about. Now, you're talking about at the time of its initial release, it was overlooked, or are you talking about in retrospect, like right now, it's not giving the accolades?
Retrospect. I mean, it just seems like, Billy was all. This is one of Billy's questions he liked to ask, was like, we had 50 years of hip hop a couple of years ago, and you don't even. There's no mention of Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, Planet Rock. There's no mention of that electronic hip hop sound. It just kind of brushes over it. And everyone who talks about like the rave era and dance music and house music exploding in Detroit techno and whatever, they all miss electro, which was huge. I mean, it was a huge thing here.
I wasn't aware of how big it was in England. I mean, I knew it. I mean, it's the brother-sister relationship between hip hop, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the Street Sounds compilations over here.
Yeah, with Morgan Conn. But for me, to me, electro music is the same definition as it is to you. 1982, everything from Geno Socio to Planet Rock, with that, that boom, snap, boom, boom, snap.
Yeah, it's got a sound, doesn't it?
It's got a sound, exactly. Yeah. And Electro House doesn't do that. Electro House is a different vibe. So they should, by them using the word electro in front of the word house, kind of took away what original electro is.
But it muddied the waters even more. I mean, the thing was, nobody was really even talking about electro up to that point. I mean, it's just like
Yeah, why did they use that word? They stole the word, basically.
Yeah, they just stole it and tried to ride on a little bit of popularity that it was having again and in resurgence, and then just confused people again because people go, oh, electro house, you know.
Anthony Rother enjoys a ton of respect still, and
he
has a huge amount of viewers on his pages.
Yeah.
I think the people that like electro, they're still there. They still do it. You know, I don't consider myself an electro producer. I consider myself a producer who likes electro and makes it sometimes.
Hi, this is Billy Nasty, and you are listening to Bass Agenda.
show it since I made it to the top. I never felt below it, I'm the storm like the ruler. The composition ruler, I'm cool, see the beat and it is none cooler.
Perfect Jack second, the dish decay. Don't decrease in number, every rhyme I say. You go phone on the spot when I step on the scene. I'm G and I die. The brother supreme.
London is very special for me because I had so much love from everybody there. I mean, come on, dude. I was a freaking pizza guy delivering pizza and hustling bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I get out there and I don't have to deliver pizzas anymore. I would get into IQ Records with all the staff and I would just put stickers on my records and help them and do shit. And they thought I was some kind of freaking freakazoid at first, you know? And then like Fazia Shah, the girl that promoted my music, I mean, she's an absolute saint of a woman. I mean, I am gifted from the universe to have that lady. Because thanks to her hard diligence and work, I got known all over England.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Wow. Very popular. So, yeah. I mean, that's a good time as well. The late 90s into the noughties, it was still really, really good around in London.
A magical time because everybody, all the hip hop stuff was coming to with the newer updated beats, like the freestylers, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Norman, of course, Fatboy Slim. I mean, when he came out with that, back to the beat, what the fuck, I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yes, I know the one you mean.
Renegade Master.
Yes. When Renegade Master came on, I was doing a gig in France, and I was on the freeway coming out of some small town in southern France or some shit. And when that song came on and the break hit, I just about shit my pants. I just about hit the roof of the back. The guy driving me. I was like, what the actual fuck is that? I had another moment like that with the Boards of Canada album. When that came out, I was actually on, this is crazy. I was on my way to play Glastonbury with the staff at IQ Records in the car. And right as we're driving down the country road, there's Stonehenge on my right. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that looks just like Stonehenge. What is mine? There's Stonehenge.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Where are the signs in the booths to collect money to go look at it? You know, that's how I imagined it. And he's like, right as that was happening, Music Is the Right to Children album was playing on the decks.
Right.
And, oh yeah, we just got this album from this new band, Boards of Canada, and I'm like, and the song. I mean, Boards of Canada is like one of my favorite acts of all time. I love that. I worship Boards of Canada. I try to mimic them with my productions even. I mean, I love them.
So you were telling me, like you said, Def Jam, you're on their mailing list. You've got Tommy Boy, you've got B-Boy Records, and some others you mentioned. I mean, those 12s must have been flying into your hands.
Yeah, I did get, and I got not test pressings. I got
white label promos
of almost everything. I sold a lot of it, and I traded a lot of it with other DJs. But I did everything I could to get records because, I mean, as you know, that we were the internet.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, we were the ones breaking that music. I mean, it was a hard graft trying to trace down music. I mean, I don't know. It was hard for me.
No, it was hard for us too. And I was in the States, and I'll give you an example. When Big Apple Noise came out, Volume 3, Genius at Work, JT, Slim Duff, which is Latin Rascals. You know the mix, right? I was at Shea Stadium and I went to the baseball game with headphones on. I wasn't even into sports. I worked at a sporting goods shop. I just wanted to get away from sports. Well, my dad owns a sporting goods shop. I was at Shea Stadium just listening with headphones while the whole family was watching the game. And that came on the radio, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah, it's incredible, that mix. I love it.
What's going on? I almost believe it. I had a friend in Minnesota that I had found from Brooklyn. He said he knew that record, and he lied to me and told me it was a different name. Mr. CC called it, Genius at Work. That wasn't that good a friend at that point. We weren't that close at that point. Oh, I called every record store for 4 years asking for Cutmaster CC. Telling people the wrong fucking name.
That's swine. I hope you got him back for that, Freddie.
And so they had the goddamn record in the stores all these years, and I couldn't find it because I kept giving them the wrong freaking name. But then when they would say, wait a minute, I would say, yeah, it starts out with this.
Yeah.
Because I was so confident with the name, I didn't get into the details of how the record went.
Do you know is there anybody out there, the vocoder, do you know where that comes from? Because I can't find anyone who knows where that's lifted from.
No, but I did find a couple of the really rare samples in there. There was one that I found, but I talked to Albert Cabrera. The problem is a lot of times they don't even know. I mean, I've discovered this about artists. When I was with Carl Craig, I've been dying to know where that breakbeat came in from Jazz 69 Classics or whatever that he did on his album Planet E Records.
Right.
The breakbeat in one of his techno tracks that is so funky, and I asked him and he didn't know where it came from, and that made me think, wait, I thought you made the record. I don't know. Maybe he just didn't want to tell me. But no, if there anybody out there, could very well have been a vocoder drop that was made, because you got to remember, back when those mixes were happening, there were a lot of DJs doing those mixes.
Yeah.
And so they would do even
Double D and Steinsky and things like that as well.
Petty Bone. Yeah. And so they'd be in the studio and they would do tricks and drops and things over, which has been the shrouded mystery for all these years of why.
Yeah, so maybe it was just them saying it with the vocoder then. Maybe
that's why a lot of people can't find the originals, because they actually.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah, because I know a few people have been asking that question for a long time, and just nobody knows. So maybe they just did it.
I could try to have him asking that.
Could you ask him? Because I would love to know.
I asked him about some other samples.
Yeah.
Phil's having sleepless nights.
Well, yeah. I need to know the source material. It's important.
So do I. I used to spend the whole night doing that too. The Innocence, is it Innocence and Danger? I think is one of the rare samples on there. It was on Epic Records. It was a Innocence and Danger. There's a real cool electronic drop that happens in one of those pieces.
What does it sound like?
Oh, I have to dig it out because I can't. I'm gonna totally lost of how it goes. But I remember that amazing. I'm proud of myself that I remember the name. I'm pretty sure the band is Innocence and Danger, and that's a very obscure record on Epic that came out at the time that wasn't very popular. And another part that's on there that is amazing is, do you remember NV Let Me Do You on Sire?
No.
Okay, that record has a part that goes in it. It's like an electronic piece, and that's in there too. I found a lot of the really rare ones. People call me all the time and ask me for shit. Still to this day, people call me and ask me if I can train spot.
And in other news, early reports in. And in other news.
Is anybody out there? Don't touch that dial.
1 for the treble, 1 for the treble, 2 for the bass. Come on, JBD, let's rock this, rock this, rock this, rock this, rock this.
Clap, 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 clap your hands. Clap, 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 clap your hands, everybody.
When we put these shows together, we obviously, the interview tells a story, and we like to play a few tracks that tell the same story, you know, kind of follow the story. So, I mean, if we were to take you back to that kind of, I suppose, what you might call the first phase of your music making career, are there any particular tracks that stand out for you as, you know, maybe you're proud of? Or
okay, if you're going to talk about my very first beginnings, I'd probably have to say Lexicon on Experimental, or maybe Fantasia, which was songs that I you know, I one thing I haven't told you is that I had a lot of really horrible family events happening at the same time that I was doing this music, and so music for me was kind of a shelter for me from the painful stuff I was dealing with at the time. And as I'm sure a lot of you guys have had too. I mean, we all have trials and tribulations in life. But I listening in retrospect to some of those early productions, I can remember why there's so much emotion in the tracks I made, because I was feeling so much, and that came out apparently. And a lot of people tell me that over the time, like Return to Fantasia was a record I did on my Howlin', or not Miss Howlin', my Electric Music Foundation label. And I mean, I couldn't even sell those barely when they came out. It was on orange vinyl, and that ended up being one of my most collectible releases on all my releases. But Lexicon, I'm very proud of. Richie Houghton wanted Lexicon for +8 Records, which it doesn't even seem like it fits on that label, actually. But even Wild called me and he says, "Freddie, we just put out 2 of your 12 inches. We have to have this." And what am I going to do? I mean, Experimental Records supported me from the very beginning. You know, that was Silvio Tancredi, and that was, you know, he ran Atmosphere with Joy Beltram and all those guys, and I did very well. We hung out in the offices, and it was also them that got me my first gig in Paris,
right,
in 1993. So there was no way in hell I was going to jeopardize that relationship and get by giving Richie that song, even though I love Richie, and I mean, Richie and me are in great terms, but it would have been. It wouldn't have been a good thing for me to do at that point, and so it ended up being in that label. But that record came out really, really, really amazingly well. It's called The Lexicon.
This is a message from Detroit.
This is Adult.
And you are listening to Agenda. 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 Agenda.
I'm not one of these guys that's like, you have to do this or you have to do that. But I do have a partner who wants to start releasing vinyl on analog again. I've got I do have records coming out here and there, almost not all the time, but a lot. Lately, I've got like 2 releases happening. I got one in Germany coming with this. I just did this song called Tens of Thousands, which basically wrote itself. And I did that digitally. Then I went in the studio and I added bass from some of my System 100 Roland and a couple of my big synthesizers.
You've got a System 100?
Yeah, I've got a full-blown system. I've had it forever. And what happened was I bought it in 93 and then I sold it years ago to my friend, Dan Metzler. He's a buddy of mine. And then he just sold it back to me a month ago.
Wow, okay.
I kick myself because I never used the expander module properly. I never used them together. There's a bass cabinet and a cabinet leads behind it called the 102 expander, and they're used to work together. And I just touch on it here and there, but I never attached them and let them run together like they were supposed to.
Right.
And I started Alex Ball. I follow him. I don't know if you know Alex Ball. He has a English guy who has a synthesizer channel. He's an amazing guy.
Okay.
Doing these videos on the 102 expander with the 100 system. I was thinking, what the hell why was I not doing that? I'm thinking, because I have a System 100M, which is one of my favorite systems, and that I milk the shit out of it. I know everything on that thing.
Right. So you're a real synth nerd then. You know.
I know how to do. I can get sounds out of synths. I'm not going to say I can't. I can. I know my and I know my drum machine backwards. I actually started putting up videos of me doing live tweaks in the studio, and I used to get 50, 80, 100 views. I got 29,000 views on one. Holy shit! I don't know why. I think it's because some big hitter, a couple big hitters must have shared it. Yeah. And now I'm getting 1,000 to 4,000 on every video I do, and I'm like. It's great, but it's also nerve-wracking because I can't put out any bullshit or I'll lose that momentum.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's cool. So what have you got in your studio? Run it down for us. I want to know.
I've got a System 100M modular, 2 cabinets of that, so I've got like 9 modules. I'm waiting for one module from a custom manufacturer, Reich in England. They're going to do a triple resonator module. I won't get too nerdy on you. That's a System 100M system. That's a brilliant modular, mini modular system. I've got a Jupiter 8. I'll tell you what's mine. These are mine that I'm saying. Well, okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't have original. I do have an original 303 in my studio right now. It's not mine. I sold mine to buy the Roland Boutique because it play the notes on externally. Come on, it's functional. It's way more functional than 303. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of 303s sound better originally. They don't. Fucking, I will say it. They do not. They sound better than new one.
Yeah, I had a 303 years ago and I sold it for double what I bought it and I was happy.
Yeah, but I'm going to piss off a lot of people by doing this. But I'm just going to say it, especially my buddy, because he's hell-bent on everything has to be authentic. And so I've got a 909. I bought the Behringer 909 and I have the Boutique 909. They're fucking badass, dude. They're fucking nasty. I mean, I've got a 909. Right now I have 3 909s. I have an original 909. I've got the Boutique and I've got the Behringer, but the original's not mine. It's my guy. It's my buddy's.
Right.
And he said, just keep it. I want you to use it on these tracks. I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. But to be fair, it did inspire me because they're so quick to do the pattern changes. The buttons are so big, and the Boutiques are tiny little cryptic buttons.
Right. Yeah.
And so I am flying on them. But I've also got right now I've got a Jupiter 6 down there too. I've got a Jupiter 8. I have a R2600 orange and black from the 70s. That's an original. That's bad boy. I've had that forever. I got it for $125.
Wow.
Now, I got my Jupiter 8 for $350.
No way.
And I mean, in the 90s, people were throwing the shit. Some dude just posted, yeah, you've got so much gear, way more than you need to make these tracks, or way too expensive gear. And I said, and I wrote, if I could afford the software, I'd buy the software. My gear was cheaper than the software.
Yeah, that's the thing, but it was like that.
They don't understand that. These young kids don't get that. They think that you're trying to show off your toys. Well, yeah, I'm showing off the gear, but it's not because, look at I have a Jupiter 8. It's because, well, fucking hell, that's all I had. But I mean, I have that. I've got, I've got a Go Soundcraft mixing desk. I've got a whole ton of Behringer shit. I've got a Cobalt, not a ton, but I've got a few pieces. I've got the Cuban Comparator SY1 Pearl clone, where those are badass. The SY1 Syncussions, those are insane. The sounds they make, they're just bananas. I've got a monopoly, but I think it's a clone though. And I've got 808. Right now I've got two 808s. I've got a Boutique 808 and a real 808. And I've got the 808's not mine though. I'm not gonna lie and say it's mine. I sold mine because you could get stupid money for them back then.
Yeah, well, why not? That's the thing, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do have some pretty rare kit. I mean, compared to, but I have access to. There's an ARP 2500 here in Minneapolis. I mean, there's some really rare ass shit in the Twin Cities here. PS 3300s, Moogs, all kinds of shit. I had a Moog Series 3 in 1992, and there's only like 10 of them in the whole world, and I sold it.
Wow, what's that worth now?
It's worth like $350,000 now.
God.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
But I use all the stuff. You know, I'm not like, look at my Jupiter. Fuck, shit's got probably coffee stains on it. I mean, I'm using the thing 5 times a day. You know what I mean? I'm always on my gear.
You're in loads of different genres, aren't you?
I've done about 212 singles probably.
Can you remember everything you've done? I mean,
no,
I'll tell you, this is a self-indulgent moment, okay? But my girlfriend absolutely loves your EP, the Gnarl EP.
That's crazy on Drop Bass Network.
Yeah. So Slapped by Timmy Sounds, I think, is the track in particular off that EP.
Oh yeah.
So she's got a lot of memories of dancing in forests in the mid-90s.
You gotta let her check out the Analogical Mind stuff, man. She's gonna lose her mind. Analogical Mind. I just got a DAT back last 2 weeks ago from 33 years ago. I ordered a drum machine.
I saw this post.
Yeah,
I ordered a drum machine from a guy who ended up being the captain at one of the captains at Planet X Records in New Jersey. And so I opened up the freaking drum machine, and here's a DAT sitting on top of the box. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What's that? That's me. Wow. It's my handwriting. Holy shit. So I called him up. He goes, yeah, I used to work at Planet X, and I had this DAT laying around for 33 years. Shit, it was the only copy. Because I didn't make copies of any of my music, because the DATs were like $14 a piece back then.
Yeah. Right.
And so I kicked myself because like I did 33 releases on analog. That was like first techno label. My label was the first techno label in Minnesota, in the Midwest, one of them. And like Axial EP was Nikola Borkovich. He died, and he did a record that's so brilliant. Everybody loves it. And naturally, I don't have the freaking DAT. I had to master it off vinyl like an idiot, but at least I did it. But the problem is, it was so bizarre. Here, I don't even have my own DATs, and this guy's got a DAT of my music. So your girlfriend will love that release. I just put it on Bandcamp. It's rock.
I'll let her know.
160 per minute, blazing acid shit. the best DJs in the world are oftentimes the warm-up DJs that no one's ever heard of because they're so inflamed with passion. I saw a guy in France, he opened for a British DJ that came in to headline, and he had the place losing their minds. I mean, the paint was peeling off the walls. He was just on fire because he knew that his hero, the British guy, I can't remember who he was listening to him because he had to hear him. He was there getting ready to go on. And the guy walked up to him and he pushed him off the decks.
What?
Yeah, that was his thank you for warming up the crowd. Well, I mean, he had the crowd in fever pitch, but he did it because he was terrified. How are you going to follow that? You know,
it's hard to follow that.
No, I know. You know what you do. You know what you do. The best trick to do when you come into a fever pitched room. What I would do when they would do that, because they would always ask me when I would do my circuits in London, Freddie, do you want me to play slow music or something? No, you do whatever the hell you want to do, man.
Yeah.
I'm confident in my game. I know I'm gonna rock this motherfucking place. I'm a good DJ. I mean, I think I've been doing it since I was born, practically. And so I get up there and I would tell the guy, I would stop the music dead, hold the guy's hands in the air, and make everybody applaud for at least a minute for the guy who just did it.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, definitely.
And they just lose their minds. They get all the X screaming out. They get all the energy out. He gets his accolades, which he's well-deserved.
Yeah.
And he's happy. The crowd's happy. And then I start him up again, like a roller.
And you look like a nice guy straight off.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking right, man. And that's how it should be. Because the DJs who work hard and are good shouldn't be hidden.
Agenda.
I know we're kind of jumping around a load of place, but I feel like we've kind of reached the point where I was going to ask you about, I mean, because I think it was 2 years ago you released 35 Years of Music on EPM.
Yeah, that's my manager. My manager's British, you know.
Yeah, is it Oliver?
Yeah, you know Oliver.
Oh, yeah, I know Oliver very well.
Oh, what a great guy, man.
Yeah, he's lovely, isn't he?
We love Oliver. He's a legend. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that album, if I may. I mean, for obviously 35 years is a milestone anyway, in terms of time. But I just wanted to know a bit about the album. I mean, obviously, I guess what you were trying to do is make the statement that you're not a one-trick pony, you know, because that album covers so much in terms of style and genres and you know, it's such a ride, man. I love that album.
Thank you. I do appreciate you saying that because man,
that's true.
He picked out all the tracks with Jonas from.
Oh, okay.
Jonas Stone.
Yeah, they just went and said, Freddie, I mean, I've done probably 800 or 1,000 songs. Here's the deal. I went through a stage where I had to do music. I mean, if I don't do music, I get like anxious. Do you know what I mean?
I'm the same. I have to do it.
Yeah, and so I go in the studio. Like I have a studio right behind me downstairs with just the most ridiculous synthesizers, and I'm down there all the time. Now, there was a period when I met my current wife for about 6 years where I was not going and doing music. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just wasn't doing music. But then what happened was, and I started getting the bite again. And I really love old school hip hop and drum and bass. And I've always liked beats, right? And I love the Aphrodite sound, what he was doing, right? When he was mixing, you know, like Pumpkin and the All-Stars with drum and bass and shit. And I was like, let me find more of this. No one's doing it. Nobody's doing it. I said, fuck it, I'll do it myself. And I'm challenging myself to do that style right now, which probably pisses off a few people. Some people don't give a shit. But I've also got like about 1,000 guys that are loving it. And so now I got German guy on board doing remixes. I've got Crash Party from England. I've got Rob T. I think he's from English guy. And we're doing these remixes where we take acapellas of old school rap records. And then I do drum and bass, but the difference, I'm not trying to do the dubsteppy drum and bass that the kids are doing. I'm trying to do more of an style using synthesizers, drum and bass. So it's not as tough clinically with the production side. It's a little bit more 90s-ish production style. But I talked to Aaron Fuchs yesterday. He owns Tough City Records. Yeah. And I've been trying to get him on board with this, and he's going to finally let me have a crack at his catalog now. So the gates may be opening for me legally to be doing these remixes. Wow.
So I was going to ask you that. I was going to, how do you get around the legality of it? Because obviously, you know, if you're
they're all fucking pirates. None of them are illegal. But I tell but I know I don't hide. Here's what I do. I've been doing sample clearances my whole life, and I've been dealing with that bullshit and the freaking red tape and the bureaucratic shit, the people that know anything about what you're even trying to do, and $10,000 before you can even ask the question. Fuck off. So here's what I'm doing. I'm putting this only on Bandcamp. I put it for $3. I make between $3 and $21 on a release. So if I do 12 track, you know, or on a song, I should say, I might make $50 on a 13 track release. I give the remixers some money. Yesterday, I just sent 25 pounds to 2 of my guys. It's not a lot of money, but it's more than we're even getting on the release. Do you know what I mean? Snacks or whatever the hell they want, because I believe artists should be getting paid, even if it's $5. You know, I had millions of, only on one song. But anyway, long story short, I put the songs out. I try to get the attention of the artist. I send the artist the links to the songs to check it out. I got great feedback from Schoolie D. I got great feedback from Man Parrish. I just did Boogie Down Bronx. That's coming out here in a couple weeks. I get great feedback from the artists. Nucleus loved the Automan remix I did.
And, you did one of those as well, did you? I did one too.
I know, yeah. I've been hearing some of your stuff is blinding, man. And so, Public Enemy's label was supposed to put out the B-Boys remix, but it kind of fell through the cracks. And so, if anyone complains, I take it down. I mean, they can only sue you for what you've done, what you've earned, unless you can you're defaming their character. Well, how the hell am I defaming their character? This is remix culture.
Well, I asked you earlier to choose a couple of tracks that were kind of you wanted to highlight from your earlier stage. So if we talk about the latter days of your releasing career, what would you highlight for people? I'd like to try and play stuff that
Well, I just did a song that I'm actually kind of proud of, and that doesn't happen all the time, and it's called Tens of Thousands.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned.
I did an electro mix recently, and that's coming out on vinyl. We're actually preparing the artwork for that as I speak. It's on the Freddy Fresh Bandcamp page. It's called Tens of Thousands, and it's got a picture of my daughter when she was little.
Okay.
I mean, the picture makes his head look really big on it. My wife was moaning about that a minute ago. And then I've got one for Ariana, which was a song I did, but that's an ambient track, and I'm kind of proud of that too. Or Feathers, maybe. Those are 2 tracks. But I mean,
Feathers,
I've literally done hundreds and hundreds of songs, and it's not like I'm trying to be a factory that puts out a million songs. It's that I have that ADD or ADHD or whatever the hell is where you can't concentrate for 5 minutes.
Do you go into the studio though? I mean, I guess with drum and bass, it sounds like you probably do. But I mean, do you go into the studio and say, right, today I'm going to make a techno track, or today I'm going to make a house?
Yeah, I do actually, because I've got a guy totally leaning. My partner's leaning on me a lot to make techno. And I have a ton of people that really want me to make acid music all the time. And there's nothing wrong with acid music. I love acid, but it's got to be funky. It's got to have a bounce. It's got to have something. And it's like. At the risk of sounding, I don't want to say this even out loud, but I get bored.
Right.
I go to the studio and I get bored when I start something, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else, and then I start something else. I get to the point where either something happens that inspires me to work harder. And it might be that new. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's a guy I think he's in Holland. He made a module, a Eurorack module called the Sample Splicer. Ginkgo Company. He's an independent company. This sample splicing unit is fucking ridiculous. You are able to I sample the AM or FM radio signal, and it'll spread whatever I sample across a 12-second bed of light dots, and then you can dial the dots. You can dial the knobs, and you can truncate the loop, and then you can pitch it, play it like granular synthesis. You can do it. The technology allows all these amazing things to happen now. The technology is so advanced that you can do things that you just couldn't do before. So it's like all these new spices have come out, and I'm cooking every day with salt and pepper, and now I've got 15 new spices I can cook with. and it inspires me to now want to make that one track I couldn't make before. I couldn't do drum and bass before because I couldn't get into the intricacies of the breakdowns that I needed to do. And I'm trying to toe the line between getting cheesy and doing stupid cheesy what everybody else is doing, break lines, but at the same time
don't do that.
But at the same time wanting to have a melody line that's catchy, or at the same time wanting to have something that at the end of the day I have to like it.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, is you have to like it. I'm a big believer in that. Don't do music for other people.
No,
I can't. Make it for yourself.
And so for me, the biggest nightmare is when someone gives me a banging track and wants a remix. Because if it's banging, I'm not.
What are you going to do? Yeah,
I don't want to remix it. Yeah.
Hi, this is Cisco from The Advent, and I listen to Bass Agenda.
creative process, or
I have a process not knowing it's a process, but yes, I do. I mean, we all have our own
habits, I guess. Habits, maybe.
Yeah, so typically what I'll do is, like, if you look at my live videos, that's how I make a lot of my tracks still. I go down, I do it all live because I don't want my computer down or something, depending on what I'm working on. If I'm doing a drum and bass track, I usually lay it out in Ableton with the kick snare, boom, boom, back, get the kick going. And then what I'll do is I'll build around it because I'm doing acapellas of rap records. So yeah, I have to lay it into a DAW, and I'll put it into Ableton. But then once I get a skeleton around the arrangement, I'll go into my studio, plug in the Ableton into the studio and into my MPC 4000 that runs my whole rig down there.
Right.
And then I will sync. And so when I push play on the space bar on my computer Mac, the MPC lights up, and that lights up everything in the room. And I got 50 million things going, like 10 drum machines and all kinds of shit, all in tangent. And then I'm like running the bass through the Ableton track, and I'm like, yeah, this bass works, this bass doesn't. Let me put the 100M here. I use the 100 System 100 almost all the time because the bass is just so reliable. It's just such a cannonball bass sound. It's like so much overkill that it's mind-blowing. The problem happens is when you're running through stuff through the desk from a digital environment into from an analog into a digital environment, if you have any effects dialed up on your mixing desk, it'll thin the sound out. The sound will be thin. So let's imagine I take a really heavy bass sound and I put it through my desk, and in the studio it's like, oh my god, the whole house is shaking, right? I put it in Ableton, and then when I play it back, it loses the muscle. Right. And it took me a long time to realize the reason that was happening is because I had a little bit of the effects dialed in, like I might have had a little bit of reverb on it, or a little bit of echo, and so it was messing the way I had it mixed. Because I'm not a genius with mixing. I know how to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I get it done, and I have a good system, and it works, and I'm getting better. But I've always been 2 or 3 years behind the big guys that are doing the DAWs. I'm never going to be that guy who makes drum and bass so clinically perfect. And so those guys make fun of me. I know I got a lot of English guys that know me, and they're like, this shit is weak as fuck, probably, because it's not cutting the hard edge that they're doing. But I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to play my old rap songs, which I put on the deck and think, oh, I love this. Oh, it doesn't sound as great today. The beats aren't as hard as I wish they would be. Let me take it and try to make it sound the way I want it to sound. So I started doing drum and bass, and I chose drum and bass only because, one, it's a challenge, and I love a challenge. I wonder if I can do it. And two, because few people are doing it.
I mean, the drum and bass on 35 Years of Music, I'm trying to remember.
Oh, that was only one song.
Verbally Brutal, is that the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was my friend. He worked with you guys know who the Atmosphere Posse is? DJ Slug? I don't know if you know them. This guy, Kevin Beecham, worked with them, and he's been rhyming on a ton of my drum and bass stuff lately.
It's a very cool track, man, and there is the bass on that is phenomenal.
Dude, thank you, because I gotta listen to it with more bass. I haven't even listened to it really that well. That's one thing I do that's really not good, is I listen to my stuff on my laptop and on my phone, because I'm lazy to go in my studio. You gotta remember, Minnesota's super, super cold. We're like one of the coldest states in the United States. And so in the wintertime, you can almost see your breath in my studio. I don't have a heater down there. I have a space heater. And so I have to literally warm my studio up for hours. And sometimes I just want to sit in bed upstairs warm and make music on my laptop. And I might bring a few synths upstairs. I use Eurorack too. I have a ton of Eurorack shit.
Just going back to what you said about losing the bass, you were saying you're running your System 100 through your Ableton. And
from my mixer into Ableton.
Yes, sorry. So it's coming back through your computer. And it's because you're putting some reverb or some effect in Ableton on that sound. Not in Ableton.
No, let me clarify. Well, let's pretend that I go downstairs right now and I leave my computer upstairs and I put the bass on, and the whole house is just shaking. I'm like, this is the most badass bass in the fucking world. Let me take my computer down there, pardon my French. Let me bring my computer down there, run it in, and put that bass into Ableton. And then I would play it back in the studio environment down there with my Ableton, with the System 100 turned off. It's off now, and it's not transferring well digitally. It doesn't sound, it's not shaking the house.
So you're saying that the process of changing it from analog into digital in Ableton is losing the bass on it?
Yeah, and it was me. I was doing something wrong. So what I was doing wrong was I might have had a little bit on my returns down there. Like I might have put a little bit of reverb, might have been on the effects or something. And when I turned all the effects off and put the bass into Ableton, it was better. It wasn't still 100% the way I wanted it, but it was close. And then I would have to beef up the waveform too. So I'd have to click on the waveform in Ableton and amplify the waveform of the bass as well, just to get it to come close to how it sounded in the analog environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. So that's weird. So would it? Do you think it would have lost it if you were just going straight to DAT on an old DAT tape?
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, I need to find out and do some experiments with that, because I've even thought, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll do it all analog. You know, so now what I do is I put SoundCloud as my sketch palette. So I'll put stuff up on SoundCloud that may not make it onto my Bandcamp page.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how I've decided. That's my happy trade-off. So now when I do a song, and the other thing is I don't know how to get my music. I have an older car. My wife has a newer car. So when I'm in my car, I've got a little adapter where I can hear stuff. I play my shit in my car and it sounds like shit. And I played it in my house, loved it. Played it in my studio, loved it. Played it in my phone, loved it. Got it in my wife's car, it sounds like shit. And then I'm like, oh my God. So then I started sitting in my car and doing the mastering, because I discovered if it sounds good on these speakers.
That's how I do it.
That's so funny, man. I think so many people do that, man. I think when I put stuff out on my label, I'm like, it's got to sound good in my van. It doesn't sound good in my van, it's going back to the engineer.
That's it. That's exactly how I know so many people, and I do it. I know people, friends of mine who don't drive. The guy Dexasist, who I do a lot of work with, he does his on his. He's got different monitors, and he tries to get it as good. But then if it doesn't sound right in my car to me, I'm like, nah, you need to work on that. Or I will do the same thing. I might mix it down in the studio, but then it sounds great, and I take it in the car. It's like, nah, it's not hitting.
Yeah, and then we got daughters, we got kids, and our kids are putting on the shit they listen to, and it sounds perfect.
Yes. So I always think if you can get it sounding really good in the car, that's what you want.
I'm a brutal b-boy, symbolizing hip-hop, a deadly lethal lyricist, ravager of hard rock, gladiator of grammar, punk slayer supreme, annihilating sucker punks is my lyrical team. Hard blasting assassin, I break a punk like a stem. If a crew gets too violent, I pull my 9-double limb. I got the intellect of Gandhi, but the violence of Khomeini. Battle tactics are so deadly, 20 parties couldn't slay me. Lyricist, terrorist, merciless vocalist, no compassion, I'm smashing ducks, daring to kiss. Boy bounty hunter, lyrical arsenal, with the evil dope lyrics that are hard as hell. Rock, 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 rock. Rock, rock.
Fast and assassin, I break up. Fast and assassin, I break up. Fast and assassin, I break a punk like a stem. If a crew gets too violent, I pull my 9-double limb. I got the intellect of Gandhi, but the violence of Khomeini. Battle tactics are so deadly, 20 parties couldn't slay me. Fast and assassin, I break up.
Merciless vocalist, no compassion, I'm just smashing ducks, daring to diss. B-boy bounty hunter, lyrical arsenal, with the evil dope lyrics that are hard as hell.
Fast and assassin, I break up.
Rock, rock.
Hallo, ich bin Helena Hauf und ihr hört Bass Agenda Radio.
apart from DJing, like you say, making music and starting analog records up again with vinyl, is there anything else in the pipeline for you?
Well, I mean, for the music programs, I've got the Socket Records doing the drum and bass and breakbeat. I've got Howlin' for big beat, and then I've got analog and doing techno with, which we're trying to focus on definitely vintage or at least analog gear for the analog label releases if I can do it. Just because we have so much here. I work with Mike McClure from Autokinetic. He's a genius producer, and he has a whole analog setup in his studio. I work with Dan Metzler, Outsider. He's another producer, and he has an amazing analog setup. We all have great gear, you know, and it's fun to be able to keep things in an analog environment because, I mean, the label's called Analog Records, for crying out loud. I mean, it's not, it has to be analog, but 98% of it always is. We're doing that, running Electric Music Foundation. I've got artists from all over the world that are on my labels, and so the labels are huge. That's you know, my main thing that I'm focusing on, and then I'm still updating my breakbeat book. I have a book that came out on breakbeats, which, you know, I'm getting closer to 1,000 breakbeats now, and I'm going to release another issue of that. But they're like pamphlets books,
right? And
they're collectible books, and I sell, you know, about 100 every time I do them. I still sell my rap book all the time. Almost lately I've been selling them a lot, you know, and that's going on forever. I also am doing my DJ company, Better DJs. I've got 3 DJs that work with me, and then I've got my schedule going. I have a place up north that we are going to rent out. It's like a little off-grid spot that we're going to rent for newlyweds, you know, to do that can't afford to go to, you know, outside the country on their honeymoon or something. They can go up north and it's on a 5-acre wilderness spot. But right now, wedding season is about to hit. So on the weekend, we're DJing weddings.
Do they know they're booking you, or do you do it as like sort of incognito, or are you doing it as Freddy Fresh?
I do. I have a Freddy Fresh website, freddyfresh.com, that explains what I do. For the people that want to drive really fast, we drive really fast. But if they want to drive, say it's slow and safe, we drive slow and safe. But I still mix the music. Like I took Sweet Caroline and got tired of the dead end on it, and I took the bass line out of the middle of it, and Ableton threw it at the end, added beats to it, and mixed it into Moni Moni. So now I have a Sweet Caroline Moni Moni mix. That I pull out for all the people that are not going to get into, you know, house music or anything.
Yeah, I love it.
Because they're at least going to be dancing like a DJ should be playing it. Do you know what I mean? I insist on that. The bare minimum. You don't want to get electronic, no problem. If you want Pitbull, it's going to get mixed.
Yeah,
you got a 4x4 beat, it's getting mixed. Sorry. And I mean, I'll do drum and bass remixes, but once in a while, I'd say like 30% of the time, I can get loose. And there's moments where it gets crazy. Now, on 10% of the time, it's an all-out fucking free-for-all. I've had a couple scenes where, and these are 20-somethings, where I'm beat juggling and they're up there with their cameras right on top of me. I mean, that's happened once or twice. It doesn't happen very often, but the thing is, once it happens, they get wind of it, and then I get a wedding based on that, maybe. Do you know what I mean? So what's been happening over time is people are becoming more discerning, and they're booking me. This is the guy that holds the dance floor. I want this guy. Next thing you know, I'm doing more and more weddings where I can get loose. But there's a lot of weddings where they're renting a Porsche and driving 20 miles an hour, not to toot my horn.
Yeah.
And I don't tell them. Why tell them? If they're not open to hear it, why tell them? You know?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Any collaborations in the pipeline of you? Anything?
Oh yeah, I'm doing stuff with. I'm doing a Crash Party remix right now from a guy in England, and he does a big beat show. And then I'm doing. I'm doing a collaboration with Gringo, DJ Gringo from Germany. Well, not DJ, but just Gringo. He's really a good drum and bass producer, and he's a great guy too. And he's working with me right now on some remix projects for some old school hip hop.
Love and thanks out to Freddy Fresh for what was a real fun interview. We spoke for a couple of hours and you've heard most of that today. Some really cool stuff in there. Obviously no sign of him slowing down at all. And some really, really exciting projects in the pipeline too. Make sure you check out his Bandcamp page, which is Freddy Fresh, freddyfresh.bandcamp.com. So that's Freddy, F-R-E-D-D-Y, Fresh, F-R-E-D-D-I-E, fresh.bandcamp.com. Absolutely stacks of stuff on there going back over the last 3.5 decades or so. Gonna play a couple more tracks before the show ends. First up, another one of my favourites from Freddy's 35 Years of Music album, a track called Dusted.
This is Oliver Way, and you're listening to Bass Agenda.
As always, the show will be up first on patreon.com/bassagenda, complete with the full track list, of course. Thanks to everybody who's supporting me on there, helped me keeping this thing going. Love and thanks out to my partner in crime on this one, Phil Klein, aka Bass Junkie. We'll be back together for some Space Lab episodes for you over the next 2 or 3 months. We've got David Storrs and Omar Santana already interviewed. Just need to get those edited and then out for you. Next month on Bass Agenda, I'll be welcoming Human Rebellion to the show with an interview and a stack of banging electro tracks for you. Gonna close the show with a track that was mentioned by Freddie earlier on in the interview. I've forgotten what a banger it was. Bit of fun to end on this one. That Fatboy Slim remix of Renegade Master. Have yourselves a good weekend. Cheers.
More the deep with it, house with it, deep for the rack, more the deep with it, house with it, deep for the rack, more the deep with it, house with it, deep for the rack, more the rack with it, back with it, deep for the rack, more the
Again, will the renegade master D4 damager with the ill behavior back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager power to the people back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager with the ill behavior back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager power to the people back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager with the ill behavior back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager power to the people back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager with the ill behavior back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager power to the people back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager with the ill behavior back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager power to the people back once again. Will the renegade master D4 damager with the ill behavior back once again. With the ill behavior, 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 with the back for deep with pop with D4. Again with the ill behavior, 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 with the ill.
Yo, this is DJ Digital. Thanks again for checking out Andy on the Bass Agenda Show.
again with the ill behavior, with the